Hey, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't done so, why don't you hit that subscribe button for us? It really does help. In today's video, we're going to have to do something I never wanted to have to do, but we're going to call out another YouTuber. Over on VK's channel, he claims to have a permanent fix for Joycon drift. And unfortunately, he's made a band-aid at best for one type of problem with Nintendo's Joy-Cons. So, if you stick around, you're going to learn a couple things. All right, on the bench today, well, is a subject more than a broken item. And originally I had my brother actually pointed out VK Channel's video on permanently fixing the Nintendo Joy-Con drift. And I gave it a quick look and I didn't think much of it. And, you know, I responded back to him saying that no, it's not correct because of points we'll get into. And then I had some other family members contact me. Matter of fact, a family member I just fixed 4 Joy-Cons for. And then I started getting messages on Facebook from customers who wanted to know what I thought. So, while I did respond to people who asked me directly, I figured I might as well just make a blanket announcement. And before we go any direction and make this sound like it's going to be negative, I need to give a huge shout out to the crew over at My Mate Vince. He did me a solid. My channel is just a startup. I'm still pretty small. And he put me on one of his videos and it bumped my subscribers up by about 25%. So, hey Vince, thanks a lot. One other thing I want to mention is that the crew over at VK's channel, none of what he's showing is, I should say nothing he did should be seen as negative. Over at VK's channel, they did some research, they checked some things out, and they came up with a solution based on something, well, I'm going to say something he kind of stumbled on. And we'll get to that in a moment too. But, so on that side, it's great. Anybody putting in the time, the effort, the energy to try to solve a problem and put it out on YouTube for everybody else in the gaming community to see actually gets a thumbs up from me. But, there's always that but, right? I needed to take that step back. We need to address the elephant in the room. A few of his points were very wrong. One of his main comments that actually got my attention, and one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video, is he made a claim saying that the Xbox, I don't remember if he said Pro Controller, but that PS4s and, you know, maybe the PS5, they don't drift. And the reason for that is the gimbal inside of these guys, the potentiometer is on the side of the gimbal. Matter of fact, I can show you one right here. So here's the gimbal that basically works in all these. There's some slight differences, but this is basically the same unit. You got a switch on the side here. You've got 2 rheostats, or 2 potentiometers. And he makes a claim that they don't wear out because they're not underneath it. Well, VK, I hate to say it, all of these are sitting on this bench right now because they drift. And I buy them 30 at a time because they drift. The other point they make, or I should say the point he just blows off, is another YouTuber found that inside of our standard Joy-Con joystick is that the carbon trace, which is the variable resistor, which essentially is what's housed inside of here. So in this one, it's flat. And he said, another YouTuber had said that it wore, and that's why his stick failed. Well, VK's channel basically claimed that that was false. It's not false. These things can only cycle so many times. That carbon trail, it will wear. When it wears, the resistance value changes, the centering value changes, and they fail. So, the third point he makes, and I see this a lot, is people seem to say that the Joycon drift is rampant and is a huge design flaw. Well, these are my personal day one Switch Joy-Cons. They don't drift. But I digress. I also own 3 Switch Lites, and I've yet to have any of my own personal equipment drift. So let's get on to the subject. So his claim is that these only drift because the shell starts to separate. And absolutely, that is a mode of failure in this guy. These tabs loosen up, these ones here, they're around the edge. This housing will lift. The 2 contacts that draw across the carbon path lose connection, which changes the resistance value, and then you get a drift or a center that's not correct. Now, in VK's video, you'll see him push right here, and the calibration screen will go right back to 0. In his case, he found his problem. But there's other problems that can happen. The one we already addressed, the one we already talked about with the carbon paths that wear out. When those carbon paths wear, there's not a whole lot you can do. You have to change the stick. The other thing is there are several types of these sticks, different assemblies. Some of them, as you can see here, actually I'm going to get out the microscope so we can get a closer look, and I'll be right back. All right, we got out the microscope, and we're going to take a peek at these. So here's our Joy-Con, and his claim over at VK's channel is that this bottom, okay, let's get here, this bottom here pushes out. And on this particular one, you can actually see that small gap, okay? And there is a good chance that this one might have partially failed due to those issues. But like I was saying, one of his thoughts were too is to crimp these down. And you can see this is actually one of the later versions, one of the newer versions, I should say, from Nintendo. And they have a harder crimp in it. You can actually see right where they push into it, okay? The other style that comes out of, and this one actually came out of a Switch Lite, so this is a newer still, but do you see something right there in the middle? Yeah, the entire stick is ripped out. And I didn't notice that until we put it under the microscope. The housing's cracked. Oh, look at that. I'm glad I did this. So we'll get to that point in just a second. But you can see this is a different type, and it would be harder to tighten up by doing any tabs. But one thing I want to show is, we'll come back to, I got 2 of these ones, came out of the same, or pair of Joy-Cons. Let's see if we can see this under the microscope. See that bulge right in the middle? It's a little hard to see, but you can definitely see it in the reflection. Okay, that one has it. That one really has it. But that basically happens because people are just being completely over-aggressive with these tiny little joysticks. I get it. There's a lot of action games. There's first-person shooters, and we got things like Mario, or not Mario All-Stars, but we have Smash Bros. And a lot of games like that. So the problem is people are very aggressive in general with these little guys, which is why I like this one so much. This one actually came to me with a busted off stick and they needed it repaired. But yeah, you can see right here that the housing's totally blown off. So I guess my point here is VK's channel tries to say that it's very fragile, super fragile, and the backs are breaking off. He also compares it to the PSP, the Vita, and the 3DS. 3DS. None of those actually have that button. Also, most of those are self-supported. So that's one of the big reasons. People aren't putting their thumb on top, pushing it around hard, and then pushing down for that button. Where these ones, they do. Okay, so now that we've looked at a few other issues with how they wear and how they break and how they get damaged, let's go ahead and look at VK Channel's fix. His solution is to shim this, which will work. For how long, who knows? But you know what? Let's just go ahead and get into one of these Joy-Cons because I need to show you something. For anybody who's never taken apart a Joy-Con, this is just a small tri-wing type screw on the back. There's 4 of them, and you can use a spudger. This one's never been opened. Like I said, this is my personal one. You can use a spudger to start to get into it. Drag it down the back, and then it slides apart at the front. Now, here's the problem with VK's shimming method. So if we pop this battery up, we can see the back directly where the back of that Joy-Con is. It actually sits, in this particular one, it sits this way. The back is already partly supported by the battery tray. But as you can see, they leave this back open for a reason. While some people might say this is an engineering issue, like, hey, let's just close that back up and we'll support the back of this tray a little better. Nintendo probably did that on purpose. And the reason is the same as this guy here. With this bulge in the middle from people pushing extremely hard in the center, if this was completely closed, it would push directly onto this lithium battery. It would be a single point of pressure, as you can see here. Now, lithium batteries don't have an outer shell like, like one of our C batteries, AA's, conventional batteries, ones we've all come to know and love. These are essentially a foil baggie with a sticker on it. And the energy density is extremely high. So if we put a shim behind here, or we enclose this battery, as you put pressure directly onto this stick, you're going to put pressure directly onto this battery. If you short this cell, there is a real possibility of it catching fire. So while a small shim around the perimeter, some tape, some paper, something that maybe add a little more support might be okay, to try to put a printed shim or something that will put pressure on this battery is a very bad idea. Now, on my side, some of you may or may not know, since COVID hit, this shop opened, and I started working on consoles and equipment for a few of the local game stores. In the past 6 months, I've changed approximately 150 of these little guys. And I've changed probably about 50 of these style. The real issue is these are semi-fragile. There's different methods and modes they can break, from physical damage, you know, having a stick ripped off, to the carbon traces failing, to the backplate pushing off. Like I said, there's a few things that could happen. And the shim fix isn't going to always fix it. Now, my stance is, if you buy a pair of these from Amazon, they're only about $5 a piece. While replacing these isn't a permanent fix, and they're not going to be any better than what you had originally, the fact is, for $5 and a few screws, and honestly, 10 minutes of your time, you could be back up and running and maybe get another 6 or 8 months out of it. Where if you shim it, you don't know what other damage may already be there, especially if you can see physical damage. So, as of now, the solution is to, unfortunately, I would love to say, yes, there's a permanent fix and this is the way to do it. But the truth is, there is no permanent fix until they decide to go to Hall effect joysticks, which is a whole nother thing. And they could do it, and there'd be no physical contact inside other than that clicky button. But I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but unfortunately, that's where we're at with this. If the guys over at VK's channel want to reach out to me and talk to me about their findings or dispute anything that I have said today, I'd be more than happy to and willing to listen to them. But the facts are, sometimes they just get damaged. Sometimes they wear out. And there's not always one fix. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, or heck, even a thumbs down because you don't like my answers. But I hope you stick around. I hope you subscribe to my channel, and we'll catch you on that next video. Thanks.